Hey guys, welcome back to Whitetail Affinity. In today's video, I wanted to talk to you guys about does and doe management a little bit. It's been getting talked about a lot more lately, especially with the recent changes to Michigan's laws regarding does and youth hunts and all that stuff. And I've been hearing about it a lot. It's been a topic of conversation in a lot of conversations that I've had with different guys in different hunting circles that I'm in. And so I just wanted to kind of offer my thoughts on it and give you guys kind of a maybe different point of view, something more to think about when it comes to shooting does or whether to shoot them or not. First thing though, I'm going to preface this whole video by saying that not every area needs does taken. Some areas need more does or less does, depending. No area is specific, or no area is the same as any other area. So what works for this county or this area might not be what the next county needs, as far as whether or not to take more does out of the herd or to leave them alone and let the population grow. So that's something to definitely take into consideration. The second thing is, I'm not buying your tag, so whatever you shoot, whatever you want to shoot, you do it. I mean, that's nobody can tell you what to do with the tag that you bought with your money, and I'm not going to do that here. I just want to offer my points or my opinions and maybe give you a different point of view on things, make you think a little bit. And the third thing is, I don't agree with barely anything that our NRC does, or the DNR in this state. They rarely get anything right, and everything that I say here is just my opinions on what I've seen and how I hunt and everything like that. With all that being said, what I try to do is just use common sense and apply that the best I can to any given situation. So one of the most common things that I hear, especially up in my area up here in Michigan, is that if you shoot a doe, you're killing 2 or 3 or 4 deer. And honestly, that cannot be further from the truth. I hear that a lot from guys that if it's brown, it's down guys, your quote unquote meat hunters. They say that if you shoot a doe, you're taking 2 or 3 or 4 deer out of the herd, or even 5 sometimes. Who knows? I don't know what they think, but a doe is only going to get bred one time in a season, and that doe, if she's really healthy and has really good nutrition and all the genetics and everything there, it lines up right, she could have triplets. So that's 4 deer if you shoot that doe, theoretically, that you're killing if you kill her. And more times than not, she's going to have either 1 or 2 fawns. And so you're really killing 2 or 3 deer typically when you shoot a doe. So with that being said, a buck, I looked up a bunch of different studies, and almost every one of them says that between 6 and 12 does is how many does a buck can breed during a typical breeding season. So that right there just tells you that when you shoot a buck, and it doesn't matter if it's a spike or a 12 point, you're killing more deer, theoretically, than if you shoot a doe. So when it comes to these guys saying that you're killing all these deer when you shoot a doe, and that's why they don't want to shoot them, I mean, it just can't be further from the truth. It doesn't make sense intellectually, common sense. I mean, the studies prove it. And if you figure that even at 1 fawn per doe that is bred by 1 single buck, you're killing those 6 to 12 fawns plus the does on top of it. So that obviously doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and you just should not use that logic at all when it comes to taking does. Now, if you want to kill a doe, if you want to kill a buck and you don't want to shoot does, you want more does because you like seeing deer when you go hunting, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But be honest and say that. Don't try to justify it by saying you're killing a bunch of deer when you shoot a doe, and then you shoot the first 4 point you see, or you limit out on your 2 buck tags. You take 2 bucks in a season, but you want to see more deer. Don't say that. You be intellectually consistent and just realize that you're killing more deer per deer that is shot by killing a buck than you are a doe any day. I mean, it's the facts. It's a proven fact, and so that's one thing that I always hear. That's just it's crazy too. These guys that are saying this too, they don't want to shoot any of these does. They don't want to have, like in Michigan here, you can buy up to 10 doe tags. You can shoot technically 12 does if you use your combo tag and buy 10 doe tags, or you can shoot the $2 and buy 10 doe tags on top of it. But these guys that are saying this, they say that shouldn't be allowed, and that they're just trying to kill all the deer off and blah blah blah, and that, you shouldn't be allowed to get all these doe tags. And it gets frustrating sometimes because a lot of these guys that are saying this stuff are the same guys that are saying that they don't want crop damage permits. They don't like the fact that farmers get to use crop damage permits. And I've heard so many guys say, this farmer leveled 100 deer this summer, or they've got X amount of permits, and that's just wrong, and they get all mad about that. And I'm not saying I agree or disagree with that as far as getting, that I think it's wrong or whatever, but I'm saying they don't shoot any does during season, and then they get mad because they're issuing all these crop permits. Well, if every hunter shot a doe or two throughout the season, these farmers wouldn't be able to get these crop permits. I mean, they wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't give them out as much. If the population of does was down to where, from guys shooting does during season, from hunters actually being the conservationists, they wouldn't be able to issue all these doe tags. And I mean, I guess they still could, but the population would be down to where it wouldn't be an issue like it is now. And so, think about that too the next time you hear somebody say that about crop damage permits. Ask them how many does they've shot. If they're going to be consistent with their thinking, call them out on that, and make them own up to it. If they don't like shooting does, it's just something else that I've heard a lot of, and it just bugs me because I can't. It just doesn't make sense. If you don't shoot any does and then you get mad because the farmers are getting these permits, I understand why, but you're not helping the cause, I guess, is the main point. And another thing that I've heard a lot of, like I said, especially up here in northern Michigan, the Orange Army, we have one of the highest in numbers of hunters in the whole country, and a lot of people up here, if it's brown, it's down. They don't care if they shoot a fawn, they don't care if it's a button buck, spike, whatever. They will shoot the first deer they see, or every deer they see, I guess I should say in some instances, but and then they'll complain because there's not any bigger bucks. And it doesn't make sense to me, especially the meat hunter argument. If you're gonna be a meat hunter and you shoot a spike or a 4-point, you shoot a 1.5-year-old buck, to me you didn't do anything. Number one, you're not a meat hunter if that's what you're doing, because there's more meat on a 2.5-year-old, 3.5-year-old doe than there is any 1.5-year-old buck in the whitetail world. So number one, that's false. If you're gonna shoot for meat, you should shoot a big doe over that spike. Now again, I would never tell you shouldn't shoot whatever you want to shoot with your tag, but what I'm saying is, if you're a meat hunter, let that little guy go. Shoot the doe that's behind him or in front of him that's twice his size, and get more meat for the same amount of effort as if you shot that little buck. So that's one thing that really bugs me about the meat hunter argument. And then the other thing is, like I said, there's no big bucks. Yet every 1.5, 2.5-year-old deer buck that comes by, the guy shoots it. Now, again, I shoot that spike if that's what makes you happy. Shoot whatever you want, but don't sit there and say that there's no big bucks if you're A, too lazy to go find them, or B, you don't ever give any of the smaller bucks a chance to get up to a big buck size. It just doesn't make any sense. And and not to mention, aside from the meat thing, a big old weary doe, she's way harder to kill. It's a way bigger accomplishment, at least in my eyes, to kill a big old doe that's just, she knows every leaf in that forest, compared to that young, dumb, 1.5-year-old spike, 4-point, whatever. So to me, aside from the meat, I would rather shoot that big doe any day, because I guarantee you I would have to work harder to outsmart that big doe than I would that little buck. So that's just the meat hunting thing, and the outsmarting the big doe. The two reasons why I would I would shoot a big doe over a small buck any day. And not only that, if your area does need more does taken, if there's an overpopulation of does, you're also helping that out as well. So something else that I hear a lot of when I'm talking to people about does and shooting does is that they're worried that the rut isn't going to be as intense, or that there's not going to be as many bucks on their property during the rut because there's less does. And at first you would think that that might be true, but if you think about it more than just surface level, you realize that it's just not true. If you have a ton of does on your property, the bucks that are there don't have to compete as much. They don't have to be up on their feet searching and seeking for those estrus does. They don't have to fight with each other because there are so many does that it's just not necessary. Versus if you have less does, those bucks that are there, they've got to compete for those does. They've got to fight for them. They've got to actively search them out. There's going to be 2 or 3 of them chasing that one estrus doe that's in heat. It's just going to make for an all-around better hunt. So that just simply isn't true. If you think about it, like if you walked into a bar and the bar was filled with dudes and there's 2 chicks up at the bar, obviously those 2 are going to be getting all the attention because of the ratio of male to female, so that all the guys are going to be probably fighting over them, whatever, trying to take them out on a date or take them home or whatever, versus you walk in there with your buddy and it's all women, and so you can just talk to whoever and not have to worry about competing or them having anyone else's attention. So that just simply isn't true. My biggest buck came off my buddy's property, and the night before I killed him, I saw him. He went out in the field, and there was 8 or 10 does out there in a big hayfield, and he went out there, and this is November 6th of 21. It was prime rut. This buck went out in this field, ran a couple does around, and took off running across a cut bean field, and out of nowhere just left that whole group of does there. Now, to me, if there would have been less does and a couple more bucks out there, I think that situation probably would have been a little bit different. But since he didn't have to compete with anybody, he just kind of sniffed around. Nobody was ready. He left, went looking for some other tail somewhere else. And the next night, I moved my stand about 80 yards across that field. The very next night, I was sitting there. I stopped counting does. Does were filtering into the field from all different sides of the woods around the field, and I stopped counting at 22 does in that field. And when he come out galloping across the field, that's when I stopped counting. He ran a bunch of them around, followed a whole little group of them right down by me, and that's how I killed him. But I think if there would have been more bucks in that field trying to chase those same does, I don't know if it would have been the same turnout. I don't know if I would have killed him. He probably would have been a lot more preoccupied trying to fight with them, and he would have had competition. He wouldn't have had free reign over the whole field. So the notion that killing does is going to make the rut less intense or make less bucks come to your property is simply not true. You have to remember that your property should be more conducive for a buck to be there than does, if that's your focus, is killing bucks. You should make your property appealing to bucks more than just does, because the rut is only a small window, a small time frame of the season, and you want to have more opportunities to kill bucks if that's your goal. So you want to make your property more conducive to keep them there year round, or at least season long, than just having a bunch of does and not seeing as many bucks and not having as an intense of a rut. So I hope that makes sense, and that kind of leads right into the next thing that I always hear, especially in my own family, and that is that if I don't shoot, so my family is notorious for shooting small bucks, and then I'll say, was there any does with them? Oh yeah. And like I said before, you're getting less meat. You didn't do anything. You're shooting a spike, a 4-point, whatever that makes you happy, fine. But that doe was more meat, probably harder to kill. Why didn't you shoot her? Well, if I didn't shoot him, the neighbor would have. I've heard this so many times. If I had a dime for every time I've heard this, I'd be well off. And but this obviously is not true as well. You think about, if you shoot the deer if you shoot that spike or that 4-point or whatever, it has no chance, has zero chance of going anywhere else and having a chance at surviving. And if you don't shoot that buck, that little guy, he's got a chance. You might think that he's going to walk across the property line and get shot, but do you know that? You don't know that. I mean, you gotta think past just these old traditional thought patterns, I guess you could say. And the reason this is such a big one for me is because I always hear how there's no big bucks around. There's all these scrub bucks and this and that, but every time one of them walks by, they get leveled. And I just, to be consistent with the thinking, I just think that big doe would be a way better option. And if you kill that little buck, he definitely isn't going to have a chance. He's definitely not going to make it to the neighbor's property and maybe not get shot by the neighbor, and then maybe not be able to grow up and be a bigger buck next year, etc. So that's something else that if that's something that you've done in the past or that you're trying to get away from or you hear a lot of, just try to fight against that, because that mentality is the reason why a lot of 1.5-year-old deer get killed, and they don't need to be. So I hope that all makes sense. And again, this is just another one of those things when it comes to killing does, just a generational mentality that needs to be broken if we're going to see any kind of change. And that's, I guess, the reason why I'm bringing these points up. And some of them might not be completely doe related every time, but I think that they all factor in together and play a part and play a role in getting the deer herd to be better for all of us. And I think that's why these points are important. So guys, all this conversation about what to do with those, whether to shoot them or not, kind of came out of the bigger topic of conversation that happened was the rule changes regarding no does or no bucks being shot during the youth season starting 2025 of next year for Michigan. Basically having a rifle season during muzzleloader, and the fact that they didn't pay attention or implement any rule changes when it came to a 1 buck rule or APRs, or anything that had to do with restructuring the buck tags in any way. And my response to the guy that I was talking to about the youth hunt was that I'm not really happy with it either, as far as my daughters or my son not being able to shoot a buck. But I guess I'm choosing to respond to it and look at it like this. Now it takes some pressure off me. I know I can take my kids out and shoot a doe on pretty much any given day, and I can't always guarantee that we're going to see a buck, let alone shoot one. So that one for me, I'm choosing to look at it like that. I can still take them hunting. They still get to shoot a deer. It might not be a buck, but there's really not much else you can do about it. Getting mad and upset. Yes, I want them to be able to shoot a buck, but if it's not going to happen, that's how I'm going to look at it. I get to take them out still, shoot a doe. They probably have a better chance of shooting a doe anyway, instead of watching all these does go by and then shooting the first spike or 4-point they see. So it kind of all ties back in. But then as far as the rest of the APRs and the 1 buck tag and all that stuff, it's like I told him, guys, no matter what they do, it's not going to be the right thing, at least by our standards. They're not going to do any rule changes that is any good for the herd, let alone that it's going to please everybody across the board. So what I basically told him is hunt your hunt. Don't shoot. If you want to see bigger bucks, then practice what you preach and stop shooting small 1.5, 2.5-year-old deer. Change the way you hunt, get more invested in it, work a little harder, and they're out there. And any APR and 1 buck tag, yes, it's going to absolutely help the herd. But since Michigan is probably not going to adopt those changes, it's up to us as hunters to make those changes happen. And until we see a mentality shift in this state, especially Michigan, until we see a mentality shift, but this could be anywhere, until that mentality shifts from them old timers that are like, if it's brown, it's down, you can't eat the horns, meat hunters that are shooting fawns and little bucks, until that mentality changes and people really start thinking and looking at things objectively instead of emotionally, then nothing's going to change. And so it's going to take you, it's going to take me, it's going to take teaching our kids and telling our friends and family, these are the things that we should be doing to help this along. And if like Michigan, if you got a combo tag and you shoot a buck, make it that $1, make it that's your last buck, or let the smaller ones go if you want a big one, or if you're happy to shoot that spike, shoot it and then use the other one on a doe. It's going to take all of us collectively, and like I said, not everybody's going to agree on everything. That's never going to happen in anything, but the majority of us the majority of hunters in general want to see bigger bucks. That is the goal. That is the, if we're all being honest, that is the goal, to see bigger bucks. Any of us would rather shoot a big 10-point than a doe or a 4-point, or at least have the chance to see it, or to shoot it or see it, at least have that chance. And that's only going to happen if we all start collectively doing something different. And so I guess that's the main point of this video. Like I said in the beginning, you do whatever you want to do with your tag, but if you want something to change, you can't rely on the government to change it. Don't feed into the whole mentality of, if it's brown it's down, or I'm a meat hunter but I'm going to shoot this little 1.5 old, and that's, you're doing the same amount of work for a third less meat. It doesn't make any sense to me. So like I said before, be intellectually consistent, be intellectually honest with yourself, and think about what you're doing and put it into practice. And that is what is going to change the situation as far as the does and the deer herd overall. And if we all play our part and do the best we can, based on the knowledge that's available, then I think some good things could happen. And then we wouldn't have to rely on the government as much to try to make these changes happen that they're probably not going to do. I mean, they can't even figure out that deer can still transmit CWD without bait. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole, but I just wanted to touch on the does and the doe management, because it was a big topic of conversation this past weekend, and I wanted to get this video out there, check in with you guys, say, hey, how's it going? I've been busy. I'm going to be putting more videos out. I've got 5 little ones now, and they take up a lot of time, and I'm helping my wife with our 1.5-month-old son and our 14-month-old daughter. So that's a full-time job on top of my full-time job that just went to overtime. So I'm going to do my best to keep getting videos out to you guys, and thank you again for watching. As always, I appreciate you being here. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know respectfully what you guys think. Don't bash me. Don't say I'm wrong. Tell me why you think I'm wrong. Tell me what you think could be different, and how we're going to get the doe problem that's, at least here in Michigan, under control, or is it not out of control? What is your thoughts? And tell me any other pointers or opinions that you have on what we could do that would add to this conversation. So again, I thank you guys for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't yet, smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.